Imagine trying to get into a building, only to find a strict checklist at the door. You can only enter if you own property, if you pay high taxes, or hold an advanced degree. Everyone else is kept outside. That rigid, exclusive setup sounds like a bleak thought experiment. But for decades before independence, that is exactly how political power was structured in India. Today, the reality is entirely different. When election season arrives, it functions as a public festival where the doors are thrown wide open for everyone. Take a look at this photograph. It shows exactly who participates in that festival today. We are looking at an event that brings nearly 1 billion eligible voters to the polls, drawing from every geographic region and social background in the country. Going from a locked door to the largest democratic exercise in history required a deliberate choice. The nation had to rewrite the rules from scratch. That choice was written down right here, in Article 326 of the Indian Constitution. It established a concept called universal adult franchise. The principle is straightforward. Every single citizen gets an equal say in choosing their government, starting at age 18. It completely ignores the old barriers: your caste, your religion, the amount of money in your bank account, or your gender. None of these factors determine your right to participate. By making this a legal guarantee, the framers of the Constitution turned the act of voting from a rare privilege held by a few into a public right belonging to everyone. To understand why they made that choice, we have to look at the colonial system they were replacing. Under British rule, the voting framework acted as a strict fence, qualifying people based on their property or ability to pass a literacy test. This pie chart shows the real impact of those rules. A tiny slice, just about 13% of the population, made the decisions. The remaining 87% were deliberately excluded from the process. When the framers sat down to write the new constitution, they had a serious debate. Some argued that people who couldn't read or write shouldn't be allowed to vote yet. Look at this photograph of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He strongly rejected that idea. He argued that keeping people uneducated and then using that to deny them a voice was simply punishing them for the inequalities of society. The framers realized that if they wanted every citizen to have a real say in the country's future, they had to remove the wealth and education requirements. That was the only way to hand the microphone of political power to marginalized communities. This timeline compares when countries guaranteed these rights. India adopted universal franchise immediately in 1947. Meanwhile, Switzerland waited until 1971. The Constitution kept adapting, and in 1988, an amendment lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. Lowering that age was an acknowledgement that younger citizens have a heavy stake in the country's future and are fully capable of helping steer it. Because it is a right, people often wonder if voting is a mandatory legal obligation. It isn't. You cannot be punished or fined if you choose to stay home on Election Day. There are also specific legal boundaries to keep in mind. The word universal applies to eligible citizens, meaning foreign nationals and individuals convicted of certain serious crimes are still excluded from the voter rolls. So the electoral framework prioritizes broad and growing inclusion from day one, while still respecting individual liberty and basic legal parameters. Opening the doors to that exclusive club and bringing everyone into the public square was a mechanism designed specifically for total equality. It created a space where the rule is strictly one vote, one value, and that happens the moment you step inside the voting booth. Imagine a wealthy landowner on one side and a daily wage worker on the other. Once they cast their ballots, their political power is equal. We've seen how Article 326 laid the foundation, how the framers rejected the exclusionary rules of the colonial era, and how the system expanded to bring young people to the table. But knowing this history leaves us with a question. What happens to a democracy that fought so hard to dismantle barriers of wealth and education if citizens simply choose not to use their right to vote? The system is built to include you. Showing up to use that power is the only way to ensure the public square stays open for the generations that follow.